Hello, everyone. We are talking with Ashwin Chitale today. He is an Indian actor, passionate Indologist, and language lover. He won the National Award for Best Child Actor for his performance in the film Shwas in Marathi language. He has also worked in popular movies like Ashaye and Jor Laga Ke Haiya. We will talk to him today about his passion for languages and his show Rumi Hai. Welcome to the show, Ashwin.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Welcome. So, of course, my first question is very obvious. How did you start learning Persian?
Right. So it's a long story, but to put it short,
Okay.
I was interested in languages
Mhm.
always, in the poetry and the whole thing. And I had some acquaintance with Urdu poetry, शेरो शायरी,
Mhm.
जो हम सभी का होता है, थोड़ा बहुत होता ही है. So I was familiar with Urdu poetry, but not that much. I just
Mhm.
I used to read and थोड़ा बहुत जितना होता है. But I
Okay.
was interested in languages, and after I had completed my Indology, master's in
Mhm.
Indology, I really wanted to learn a language. Actually, I was
Mhm.
interested in two things: philosophy and language. So philosophy,
Okay.
so I did my master's in philosophy after that.
Mhm.
But I was specifically interested in languages, so I didn't want to learn German because I live in Pune. So there are many people around me who actually know German, who are learning German. So I was not, I don't want to use the word tired, but for the lack of better word, I would say I was tired of, all the German speaking people around me.
You
So
can
I didn't
you
want,
can say that. You can say that. I
yeah,
won't mind.
yeah. So it was same thing with Spanish, same thing with French. I mean,
Huh.
these are very, in this modern world, postmodern world, these are
Yes.
very useful languages actually because they have their, you know, interpreter and everything. They are, these languages.
Commercial.
They're learning these languages, they have very commercial aspect to it. And I wanted to learn something different.
Mhm.
So I saw this poster one day, course in question actually, and I went for it. And I didn't know difference from, I didn't know Parsi, Persian, Farsi, they're all the same thing. Or Iranians, they're all the same thing. I didn't know that. Or Iran, Fars. I didn't know. I mean, I didn't know anything about the language. I didn't know anything about the script. I was just interested in the script because I like to write. I mean, I am a writer, but not that I like to write. As in, I like the physical act of writing. I like the way my handwriting looks, and it's just very what you can call artistic to me. So I like to write in general, and the script is very beautiful, Perso-Arabic script. So I was inclined towards learning that Persian language and Perso-Arabic script. So one day I just saw this flyer. It said Persian certificate course in Deccan College, Pune, and I
Mhm.
just went for it. So it is, I mean, it's nothing like, I was having these plans or I planned it out or anything. I just wanted to learn a language. I didn't want to learn Spanish, French, German, Chinese, or Mandarin, or, like that. I just went for it. And it was a really great experience. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That is great. So that answers my question. Why did you pick up Persian too? Yeah.
Yep. Perfect.
Yes. Great.
And
Great. So.
another thing is
Mhm.
in Indology, we cover up until 12th century of Indian history, whatever happened in Indian history up until 12th century, cover that in Indology. But after that, there's this medieval era. So they have a lot of Persian on coins, on documents, on letters, and on inscriptions, on monuments. So they have a lot of Persian in also languages also. The language change.
Mhm.
Like for example, Marathi completely changes after the Persian influence. Gnaneshwaranchi
Mhm.
Marathi, Tukaramachi Marathi, there is a lot of difference between them.
Right.
So there is this, I knew somehow that Persian has a lot of influence of Marathi language, Marathi
Mhm.
vocabulary and everything, but I didn't know the whole, scope of it. So
Mhm.
I was kind of curious about it. At the same time, I didn't
Mhm.
know anything. So that was actually a very, very good step for me, I would say, to, get
Mhm.
into something that I didn't know, but at the same time, I had some clue at
Huh.
what I'm getting into. It's a very safe yet very new territory for me to explore. Yeah.
That's true. Always better to start with a blank slate, like they say.
Right.
Yeah.
जी जी बिल्कुल. जी
Yes. So, I mean, yes, you visited these courses, but mainly you are a self-taught learner, right, of
right
this
जी
language.
जी
So,
जी
can you explain to us a little bit?
right. So since you also teach language and we are all enthusiast, language enthusiast.
Yes.
Thought is a word. I take words very seriously, and I worry about a lot about meanings of the word and the connotations they bring with them, all of that.
Okay.
Self-taught, this word is very used, it's very what we call trending in these days. I'm
Trending.
self-taught, that also. What I believe is you need some kind of academic formal education or academic formal system of learning, and onto that you can build your self-learning or whatever self-teaching you're doing. Most of the time when people say I'm self-taught, they have no clue of any kind of academic or formal whatever is going on in the academics. I'm not saying that this is the only thing that matters, but
Huh.
your self-learning should be in complementary to the formal learning. So I was learning their Persian, this one certificate course, and side by side I was very curious about the vocabulary. So as we
Okay.
all know, two types. There are main two methods to learn any language. Like, to grammar
Okay.
and second is the vocabulary.
Hmm.
Grammar is basically easy. If your memory is good, grammar will be very easy to you, right? Because you just have to तो बस रटने हैं formulas. Yeah, you have to keep in mind the formula. And उसमें आप कितने, I mean, how elaborately you decorate that formula, how elaborately you put that word, that tells कि आप कितने ज्यादा, आपका अंदाज कितना शायराना है in terms of poetry. How poetic is your सुखन, that is speech. तो ऐसे ये जो मतलब, yeah, ये जो चीजें हैं, तो I thought कि नहीं, इसकी vocabulary is very interesting. So I wanted to learn the vocabulary. Persian as a language is very easy. तो इतना, ध्यान में रखने की, and I didn't have that much to learn when it comes to grammar and the basics of Persian. But I had a lot of work to do when it came to this one vocabulary, and I started reading a lot of Persian poetry actually. Right
Okay.
from modern times, I started. Like, for example, there is this great poet in Persia. His name is Hushan Yabtahaj. He just recently passed away. His
Okay.
poetry is like, he's a modern poet, and his poetry is like it's just exceptional. Yeah. So I started reading, and then I went to, there is another poet called Nima Yusuf. So Nima Yusuf brought freestyle poetry to Persia, freestyle poetry into Iran, because they were very, the poetry was constricted to meters and, very systematic. So Mukta Chanda kind of, he did there, Nima Yusuf. So Sadiq Hidayat, there are many. And I
Okay.
went, yeah, and I started from Husha Giftar. So basically, Instagram, Facebook, you just follow Husha Giftar's fan, you will find a lot of poems on Instagram,
Okay.
and you can just read it out. So that's not even a problem. Even if it's not by Husha Giftar, you'll at least read something. You'll at least read some poetry. So that was the
Yes.
plan. I just started following a lot of Instagram pages related to Persian poetry. Then I came across classical Persian poetry from Instagram actually. Because I knew, as in Marathi, maybe we also have same thing, that today's Marathi and 12th century Marathi is different. Same thing with Persian. Modern Persian and classical Persian is different.
Okay.
So I had my doubts when I, started exploring these things. मुझे समझ में आएगा ही नहीं. Will I be, able to understand the whole thing? But it was very easy because I started from modern Persian poetry and I went back. So there were some words जिनका, form and structure change होता है, but the words were familiar to me actually. So then these guys come into my life like Umar Khayyam, Hafiz Shirazi, Saadi Shirazi, Firdausi, and Rumi, of course. So I just came across that poetry and I found a good website. जहाँ पे जैसे हमारी, we have this Rekhta, where all the Urdu poetry is there. I found a similar website called Ganjur on this one. वहाँ पे Persian poetry is compiled and they publish it.
Achha.
Very very
Okay.
good site. I came across that and I just started reading. And fortunately enough, I didn't understand that much, but I understood some amount. जिसकी वजह से I had, my interests were generated. Day by day, I became more and more interested in Persian poetry and Persian literature. This is the only kind of self-teaching thing that I did. I just explored. I just went, and I was just curious about this one. And because of Marathi and Persian connection, like most of the vocabulary, not most, like 50% से ज़्यादा vocabulary in Marathi language is borrowed from or either cognized from this one Persian language. So it sounded familiar whenever I recite poetry. Marathi people say sounds familiar. We can we can sense the words, but we can't make what you're saying in a sentence actually. So it sounds very interesting to Marathi ears
Okay.
typically, because we are familiar with the words, but we can't make a sense of that whole sentence. So same thing happened to me, and I started exploring, and I went to this completely new world where I found
Mm.
out, and when I was exploring poetry, I was exploring the music and the culture that they have around. Like for example, Khayyam they have. So they have this
Mhm.
thing called Khayyam Khani. Khayyam Khani means singing Khayyam. Khani is basically singing.
Mhm.
So Khayyam Khani mein the Persian people, the folk that they just gather around, and with the daf and with the sharab and kabab, and they just sing Persian poetry written by Omar Khayyam, which is about life and how materialistic life is, and how कितनी छोटी जिंदगी है हमारी, and we are just all going to
Mhm.
vanish and basically not be here. So enjoy
Mhm.
whatever you have. So this
Mhm.
kind of thing I explored. So उससे connected जो भी songs थे, musical pieces, so I started collecting that also. Same thing happened with everyone. So, for example, Firdausi Shahnameh is very famous. I started
Mhm.
connecting it to India, and this one, like we have Ramayana,
Okay.
Mahabharata, they have this Shahnameh. Same with
Okay.
Sadi Shirazi, same with Hafiz Shirazi. And I, sorry to say, it might be a very, hard, it's a very harsh thing. But when I started reading Persian poetry, I realized that Urdu poetry is nothing,
Okay.
nothing compared to Persian poetry. It's nothing.
Uh-huh.
Like,
Okay.
I mean, yeah, so that's a very, again, that might be a very harsh thing to say, but that's what I've realized.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
yeah, that's how I actually went there, and that was the most important part for me in that self teaching was the motivation and was the curiosity. And
Mhm.
to this date, like he's 4 years I've been doing this, but still I whenever I come across any kind of share or bait, and I'm like, ये
Mhm.
किसने लिखा है? ये मुझे चाहिए. So I search it on Google and I cross reference it, ये किसने लिखा है.
Mhm.
So then I say कि अच्छा, I've read a similar one written by someone else. तो वो किसका था? I'm constantly doing that, and that is the thing that I feel I should take credit for, rather than whatever. Yeah, because most of the time I realized that because my classmates were like that, they were there for learning Persian for numismatics, that is on the coins, Persian for reading documents, Persian for
Mhm.
they'll it will help them understanding Urdu. No one was there to learn Persian for Persian language.
Mhm.
Everyone was using the Persian language as some instrument to get somewhere. And because I didn't have any idea, I was just there, and whatever they served me, I just had it. It was very interesting, but yeah, that was the self-teaching that I did actually. Yeah.
You mentioned that you found a lot of connections between Marathi and Persian. We would like to hear some examples also.
Oh, there are a lot of examples. Some
Okay.
Arabic words traveled to Persia. When Persian
Mhm.
came to India, some Persian rulers came
Mhm.
to India. Like for example, Bahmani Empire, they made Persian language their official language.
Mhm.
There are a lot of words, but there is one word that I like very much, and I use that
Mhm.
in when I teach Persian. I use that word specifically. But there's this word called "whoos." Whoos.
Mhm.
Whoos. This is word "whoos." Now this word is spelled as in I'm just telling for people to
Yeah.
understand. A, wow, and sin.
Mhm.
Havasa. Okay. So they have two words, havas and whoos.
Mhm.
So this whoos comes to India, comes to especially in Marathi language. Two words are created out of this one word. One is house and one is havas.
Oh.
Both means the same thing, desire. Okay, both mean the same thing,
Mhm.
desire. House asne, havas asne. But havas has a completely negative connotation to it. Mostly means sexual desire. And
Yes.
house is very, what you do for like a hobby or, so this is just one kind of example. Another one is the word sobat. So
Uh-huh.
the word sobat is also very interesting.
Mhm.
The sobat word comes from Farsi sahbat.
Mhm.
Sahbat means companion. Sobat karne basically is the way
Mhm.
we use in Marathi to accompany someone basically.
Mhm.
And or sobat karna also means to talk actually.
Mhm.
गुफ्तगू करना उसका मतलब दो तीन मानी है, ये भी है. So this
Mhm.
sohbat has Arabic origins actually. So
Mhm.
when Prophet Muhammad, when he left from Makkah to Medina actually, so
Mhm.
there are some people who accompanied him, and they were called
Mhm.
Al Sahaba, Al Sahaba, or
Mhm.
al-sahib or musahib, and the word sahib comes with that. So sahib are those people who actually accompanied Muhammad when he left Mecca and went to Medina. So from
Oh,
that sahib, sohbat, al-sahaba, all of this we have in Marathi sohbat, sahib, like that.
oh,
It's very interesting story. And when I tell
yeah.
this, like especially this word sahib, in Marathi we have a lot of connotations to it. Again, connotation. When it is sahib, meaning someone, it's like a this one. And that sahib comes from actually that one. So yeah, many, many examples. This is just one of out of my head. Yeah.
Okay, okay. Great, thank you. Then you went on to produce this show of yours, Rumi Hai,
Ji, ji.
or produce or curated.
Yeah.
So how did this happen?
Oh, that's a very interesting story, actually. So,
Mhm.
uh, like I told you, whenever I was reading this classical Persian poetry, two poets, like I thought, कि ये अपने वाले हैं. These are my. They are actually saying what I think. One
Mhm.
was Rumi and one was Umar Khayyam.
Mhm.
And both of them are ideologically very different to each other. Okay.
Okay.
Umar Khayyam
Mhm.
was this scientist. He was
Mhm.
an astronomer scientist. He was from 11th century and 12th century, and he was a scientist, and he was an astronomer, mathematician, and he
Mhm.
wrote few rubaiyat, hundreds. In like there are, there are still debates on how many he actually wrote. But rubai is basically quatrain, चार ओळी जसं मराठीमध्ये आहे.
Ah.
So he wrote these rubaiyat, and these rubaiyat actually they're very famous for their. They are very materialistic in nature, sometimes very nihilistic. So I am a student of philosophy, that's why I'm using these terms like this. So nihilism is basically everything is meaningless, nothing, everything is useless. Whatever we have is this, but this is also useless, like that kind of thing.
Mhm.
Materialism is also like that. Ki whatever exists is just material. There is no spirit. So there is no
Mhm.
God. There is no, they'll attack the religious people for
Mhm.
that. Then hedonist view is there. Hedonism is basically khao pio and be merry, basically. So that is what entire approach is of Umar Khayyam actually in his Rubaiyat.
Okay. Mhm.
And Rumi is exactly opposite. What Umar Khayyam is, we call in philosophy materialists. And what Rumi is talking about is completely different than Umar Khayyam. He's a spiritualist.
Okay.
So Rumi believes that, like the spiritualists believe actually that whatever we see around, around ourselves, so उस material में there is this spirit. In
Mhm.
every material there is some spirit that dwells within, and they worship that spirit. And then they name it, that might be Khuda, Allah, God, Bhagwan, whatever it is. We'll not get
Mhm.
into the names and terminology, but whatever
Mhm.
they believe is material ke andar there is something spirit. And
Mhm.
whereas Umar Khayyam is saying no, whatever exists is material only. इसके अंदर बाहर कुछ नहीं. So I personally, I'm of this Umar Khayyam's inclination. I'm a
Mhm.
sort of materially inclined, but I appreciate poetry very much. So that makes me a very spiritualistic, temperament wala person. So I was attracted to both of them and mainly their poetry. And दोनों का life जो है, personal life, it is also very interesting. So
Mhm.
at first, I look. I mean, I tried to find the translations of Umar Khayyam and Rumi, but I didn't find. I didn't find that much. उतना मुझे नहीं मिला. But then I thought, let's do it on my own. So I started translating Rumi ke शेर. Now we'll talk about the translation and all of that later. But
Sure. Yeah.
I जैसे I started translating that, I realized that it needs to go somewhere. And
Mhm.
there, I mean, यहाँ पे वो बहुत factor आया कि I wanted some motivation, I wanted some inspiration. पहले I just used to post it on my Instagram story. Then I
Mhm.
started a page called Rumi Hai. Rumi
Mhm.
Hai, like me hai.
Okay.
So yeah, so I started that, and I just started posting my translations. And I actually used, most of the time people say, "अरे ये social media ने सब ये कर दिया है, stuff." I actually started using that. So social media पे हर रोज और एटलीस्ट alternate day कुछ तो कुछ डालना ही है. So I actually used that to my benefit. कि, that I use that peer pressure कि नहीं 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 कल कल एक शेयर है कल एक शेयर है. So I used to translate more and more and more. That's how
Mhm.
I found Rumi. That's how I read a lot of Rumi. So Rumi के almost 3,000 ghazals है. उसमें से I have translated 2,100 ghazals in Hindi
Oh.
also.
Oh,
We'll talk about the translation journey later. But
yeah,
this is
sure.
this is how the Rumi Hai was started actually, and
Hmm.
initially as just an Instagram page actually. And
Hmm.
उसके बाद then I, because of my performing arts background and
Hmm.
everything, I thought कि चलो ये करके देखते हैं. So
Hmm.
initially, whenever we gathered friends, family like that, and I just used to recite Persian poetry. और उनकी जो तशरीह करना बोलते हैं, तशरीह करना उर्दू में,
Hmm.
यानी to explain, to
Hmm.
explain. Uh,
Yeah.
Not translation, not anything, just explaining poetry. I
Okay.
used to
Hmm.
do that. And
Hmm.
sometimes it was very well translated metrical, and sometimes you can't translate into this one. So I used to
Hmm.
explain poetry, Rumi ki poetry. And then people around me, I started noticing reactions of people around me. And Rumi ki poetry, original poetry, Persian poetry, when they were hearing, and because again, Marathi people, Hindi people, Urdu people, they were hearing this and they were listening to it, and they were saying something is familiar, but we can't figure out what is familiar. We can't understand the
Hmm.
sentence, but we are, catching the words.
Hmm.
So tab I decided that this needs to be, this needs to be presented in a very calculated and a very articulated way and very
Okay.
choreographed way.
Hmm.
Then, so पहले मैं बस I used to recite poetry only, गजल. उसमें मैंने I just attached the रूमी की जो life story है,
Hmm.
उसका narration add कर दिया मैंने.
Okay. Hmm.
So that is written by me, and this one, the tarjuma, the translation is done by me.
Okay.
From that, I went and I just started performing, and I guess I never looked back because
Great.
I think tomorrow only, or day after tomorrow, there is almost 60th show of Rumi Hai.
Fantastic.
So yeah, so and again, I had my ups and downs when it came to theatricality of it. The
Hmm.
technical parts,
Hmm.
how it should be recited, how many
Hmm.
people, what is the setting and everything. So that I had, but that is a completely different this outlook.
Hmm.
This one, but with the language and with the Umi, this is how it actually started as a plain normal
Hmm.
Instagram page, and it grew. Yeah, yeah,
Generally, what happens is people start reading short stories or something on the
yeah,
Wikipedia or the internet, to get acquainted to the language. But you took up
yeah,
poetry. That is
yeah,
huge.
yeah.
How did you go to poetry?
So again, I mean, when it comes to Persian, there
Hmm.
is very there are many short stories and everything, but short stories and for that whole text and prose, you have to really go, and bought the books, and basically it's a text, na, बहुत
Books,
बड़ा
yes.
text, it's a long text. I
Hmm.
mean, short story भी it's a
Longer.
longer text compared to relatively to poetry. And this Sher and Ghazal, I was familiar with that through Urdu poetry. So you can just say something, you can just say in एक शेर, that is two lines. आपको short story लिख के भी you can't just can't आप बयां नहीं कर सकते, you can't express that.
No.
So like for example, let me recite this shit. This is attributed to Rumi. People don't know this is by Rumi. He goes حاصل عمرم से سخن بیش نیست خام بودم پخته شدم سوختم. यानी ही saying हासिल उमरम यानी मेरे उम्र का हासिल यानी the gains of my life, the achievement of my life
Hmm.
is this. हासिल उमरम से सुखन बीश नहीं यानी ही saying my उम्र का मेरे मेरे लाइफ का अचीवमेंट तीन लफ्जों से ज्यादा नहीं है. से सुखन बीश नहीं. Then he's saying खाम बुदम पुख्ते शुदम सुख्तम यानी I was raw, I got cooked, or I ripened, and I burned. So like that. So आप ये short story में
नहीं
this
नहीं.
is just Rumi. This is plain Rumi. And you can't write this using any different medium. And fortunately enough, I wasn't. People are sometimes biased about poetry or about
Hmm.
prose in both
Yes.
ways. So this is they find it incompatible or too much compatible. Fortunately, like I told you, I was just exploring freestyle. I
Hmm.
had no
Freestyle, yeah.
idea. So, yeah, so I had no idea. I mean, I have read Sadiq Hidayat. Sadiq Hidayat is very famous for his short stories. So later
Okay.
on, I read it, Sadiq Hidayat ke short stories a lot.
Okay.
But
Hmm.
pehle I was constantly, because the script is also new. So you want something
Hmm.
short, shorter than a short story. And the shares and the couplets did the work for me actually.
Like we are talking about poetry, so it's a tricky and layered thing. So,
Yeah.
and you have translated poetry. In how many languages, and how did you do it? I'm really
Yeah.
curious to know.
So yes, it's a very tricky business. Translation is a very tricky business, and with
Mhm.
especially people like Rumi, personalities like
Mhm.
Rumi, it's again because in Persian also it's very layered. तो आप translate करके तो it's a, it's a very dangerous thing. It's a very
हाँ.
very fragile thing.
Hmm.
So एक तो I had to make my peace with Rumi पहले. That was my first step. I need to understand what he's trying to say through
Hmm.
this one. If he's trying to say multiple things with single, one shade, two shades, one ghazal, I have to make my peace with it that I want to either convey my interpretations or what he wants to say. So that might be a lot of things. So
Yes.
I had to choose that मुझे जो कहना है रूमी थ्रू ये मुझे कहना है या what Rumi wants to say. I chose the second this one. If what Rumi wants to say, I will just convey. I will be just a medium. I won't add
Oh,
my interpretation. So again,
okay.
ultimately everything is just interpretation. So that's not the
Mhm.
this one. But I consciously chose the second option that whatever Rumi has said, I will just carry forward it.
Okay.
And that's why most of my translations are not metrical. Most of my translations are not are in a very are not are pure Hindu. Sorry, are pure Urdu actually, not Hindi.
Okay.
Because Urdu
Hmm.
क्या है, is closer to Persian. So I use that directly. There are many instances where पर्शियन में जो शेर में जो उर्दू पर्शियन के जो शेर में जो पर्शियन वर्ड्स है वो मैंने वैसे के वैसे उठाए because the
Okay.
connotations that they bring with them
Hmm.
it's very different actually.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it was a very tricky job and see Rumi is not only just a poet, he's a philosopher. वहाँ
Hmm.
पे बहुत ज्यादा he brings another word with this. Poetry का यहाँ पे हम खेल रहे हैं, it's very subjective. And you bring philosophy to poetry, it just goes on another level. So again, and it's typically he was Islamic philosopher. So again, उसमें बहुत ज्यादा connotations हैं. Islamic,
Hmm.
non-Islamic, what ये वो. So most of the
Hmm.
translations people have done. So उन्होंने either they've tried to separate Rumi from Islam, or
Okay.
either they've tried to connect Rumi forcefully to Islam.
Okay. Hmm.
My point is, just listen. This is, I always say to people, this is what Rumi is saying. You just have to just listen. This is what Rumi has written. You make your sense on your own. You want to connect it to Islam, fine, connect it. You don't want to, that's your choice. You want Rumi as a free spirit person, whatever you want to call it. Just call it, but in your own way. Don't expect Rumi will give you some indication, I'm like this, I'm like, because he's a poet and a philosopher. That's like the, at the same time, very best and very worst combination. So he
Hmm.
is saying one thing, but he means another. It's like Kabir's, contradictory statements are there. So you'll find Rumi saying the same things and at the same time, opposing the things. He's constructing something and he's again destroying something. So it was very tricky for me. It was a very, difficult task translating. It was very, difficult task for me. That either I want to convey what Rumi has said or what I want to convey what I've understood of Rumi. So again, like I said, I chose the second option and I chose what Rumi wants to say. And that's why my translations or whenever I'm explaining Rumi's poetry, it's not one liner, it's many liners. एक शेर के लिए 4 4 लाइन लिखे मैंने because this is the grand scheme of things. यहाँ पे आपको 4 ऑप्शन नहीं दे रहा. इसमें से you have to choose whatever Rumi wants to say that on your own. So it is like that basically. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Great. Great. So, apart from no, going back to your show, Rumi Hai, can you tell us what all is included in that? Like narration is there. So,
Right.
how do you go about it? Yeah.
So yeah, when it comes to Rumi, there
Mm-hmm.
is a lot of problem कि कौन से like let me tell you one thing whatever you read on
Mm-hmm.
Instagram उसके नीचे dash Rumi लिखा होता है 90% of
Um,
them are not by Rumi.
oh, really?
So yeah,
Okay.
I mean they are by Rumi but in a very different sense and they translated it in a very very different way actually. So most of
Mm-hmm.
that's what my that's what I experienced because I wasn't even familiar with Rumi.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know who Rumi was. I just read his poetry first, and then I found out that this is Rumi's this big phenomenon. in the West, especially in America. He's a big personality. And even though he's a 13th century Muslim Persian scholar, an Iranian scholar, poet, and philosopher, he's very famous in Europe and USA. So I didn't know anything about this one. But like I said, excuse me. So like I said, I had to really filter it out. कि Rumi ने कौन सा लिखा है and what is just attributed to Rumi. So I did a lot of work regarding that. I had, met many of Persian scholars. And there was this guy from Tehran University. There was many other people, and we were discussing manuscripts and everything, how much really is available there, and then this one. But then at one point I realized it's not about authenticity, and it's not. I shouldn't be stuck to only document. Then it will be like a research. If I want it to be a performance, and I want it to be I want to add drama to it, and that's my whole point. That subjectivity is important, and not इसने क्या कहा कब कहा is not. I mean that is also important. That's not the only thing that is important.
Yes.
Yeah. So in my program, in my show, I've included poetry written originally by Rumi, plus attributed to Rumi,
Okay.
plus people have made Qawwali, like Nusrat Fateh Ali Khan Saab. He's composed a Qawwali on the verses written by Rumi. So I've included that. There are many Persian masters, like there's Persian classical singers basically, like Muhammad Reza Shajarian, Humayun Shajarian, Shahram Nazari, Salar Atayli. So I've used their music, I've used their tunes, I've used their tarane, is what they call it, ahan, in my show. So my show has the Rumi ki life story.
Okay.
Rumi met this guy called Shams Tabriz, who was a fakir basically, and Rumi was a scholar. Rumi was a Maulana. They call Iran, they call him Maulana only. Maulana, they say. So he was a Persian scholar and Muslim scholar, and when he met Shams Tabriz, he completely transformed his life. I mean, the meeting completely transformed his life, and he completely became a Sufi and everything. So that is narrated through beautiful poetry, and जहाँ पे compatible Rumi के शेर है, वहाँ पे I've introduced those ghazals and my translation. It is like it's mushaira, it's shero shairi, it's dastan goi, it's also acting. So interesting thing about that Nakali, that I found this format called Nakali in this whole journey of Rumi basically.
Okay.
Basically, that much is included in my show because I didn't want only poetry. I didn't want only बस रूमी की कहानी बता दी, रूमी की दास्तां बता दी. This I didn't want. I wanted to actually make audience feel what I felt and what Rumi might have felt back then through his poetry. So yeah.
You're also teaching Persian. So another aspect again, teaching.
Right. Yeah.
So tell me about it.
Yeah. So our organization is named Sambhasha.
Okay.
Sambhasha Foundation actually, and I started teaching Persian primary and intermediate courses in that one.
Okay.
And basically, I found out there are many people who want to learn Persian, but there are no resources for them. There are no online classes. There are no approach is what we talk about. And like I said, my classmates in my previous Persian class, they were like this. They were there only using that language as an instrument, as a tool.
Yes.
They weren't there for learning Persian. Just using Persian to get somewhere. So I found it very disturbing actually. So I found out कि holistic approach से सिखाने वाले लोग नहीं है. So I actually tried it on my friends first. And then it was very good. So far I have taught some 120 people actually.
Oh.
Yeah, and we are just in September actually we are starting our 5th batch of Persian. The course is named Hamzaban actually. Hamzaban means जिनकी जुबान यानी this one language जिनकी same है. They're called Hamzaban. So I've designed the name in a very, because again Marathi में बहुत ज़्यादा Persian word है, so we are already Hamzaban, but we can't actually understand each other. So let's become Hamzaban. That was the idea behind it. And teaching Persian is also a great experience. They say that every time you teach, you learn something. That works for me very well. And I teach Persian script, basics of Persian language, and also Urdu script. So people are also interested in Urdu, and then it's not that different. Persian script and Urdu script, they are not at all different actually. They are the Perso-Arabic script only, and there are some special sounds like Indian sounds like t, th, d, d, n. So they are not in Persian actually. They are in Urdu because Urdu is a mixture of Sanskrit and this one Indianized language and Persian language. So
Okay.
I teach Urdu script as well, and in my since my first lecture there is poetry. So,
Oh,
like I
yes.
said, and I
I,
want to explore all the aspects of a language. Like
hmm.
there is this famous philosopher, I think Wittgenstein or Kierkegaard. I don't recall right now. He said the limits of your language mean the limits of your world.
Oh.
Yeah, so that I like very much, and that kind of approach that I have. The more words you learn, the
Hmm.
more languages. So language is तो बहुत दूर की बात है, but new compartments active in your brain. And ultimately, I think it's about just connection. It's about making knowledge is, I think, about making connections. Quite
Correct.
literally, when neurons connect to each other in your brain, and then it manifests कि आप culture को, food को, लोगों को, song को, poetry को, prose को, how you connect together. That's what matters, I think. And it reflects in my course actually. So yeah, that's pretty much it about the course.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wonderful. I like this approach of learning any language, a holistic
Yes.
approach, like you said.
Yes.
Yes. So you are an Indologist also. I have read all your question answer sessions on Quora. They're really good.
Okay. 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 They were way back.
Amazing.
Okay.
Way
I
back.
forgot all about it. Okay. Okay. Yeah.
They're very
My God.
interesting. So
Yeah.
does Indology help you in understanding, languages or cultures?
Yeah. A lot actually. And Indology doesn't actually help me, but again, like I said, it's the self-teaching. So I had my ideas, I had my beliefs, I had my own thoughts about Indian civilization. Whatever happened in India, like India की history के बारे में, I had a completely different ideas before I started learning Indology. And once I started learning Indology, I just realized that we are just one of the cultures of many cultures on a minor rock, revolving around the sun. There are many suns, there are many galaxies. Basically, the thing was, I found out that we are just one amongst many. Because I used to think, "Arey, hum kya, hamara to sab," that kind of attitude that I had before. This Indology actually helped me. Like I'm saying, indirectly it helped me very much because again, I was able to, I wouldn't say destroy, but replace my own beliefs with the new ones. As no, this is not the case. The facts say different things, and whatever you've been taught, traditionally, conventionally, it's a different thing. So I had to make my peace with it basically, and that approach has helped me very much when it comes to Rumi because I don't take my precedence there when I'm translating Rumi. I don't force my own beliefs onto my Persian students. Like whatever you want to believe, believe that. But we are here to learn language. I'll teach you
Oh.
language. When we are doing history class, वो तो बाद में हम उसकी बात करेंगे. But the thing is, we are here to learn. So that kind of compartmentalization and making peace with your own self, basically, that I learned a lot in Indology actually.
Okay.
And yeah, so Indology helped me, and Indology kind of activated, I will say, this researcher attitude that I have. That like
Okay.
in most of the time people say की पुण्यातल्या लोकांचा स्वभाव मुळाशी घुसण्यात असतो वगैरे. So people say, but yeah, that kind of attitude I already had, but it got activated or cultivated more because of technology. That if I like something, I want to go deeper and deeper and deeper, and I know like I constantly say holistic views is necessary for me to get the whole picture and why people are interpreting it in a different way. So when someone is saying Rumi, some people have some prejudices against Rumi or they don't like Rumi or whatever. So I'm not mad at them. I'm not mad at what Rumi is saying. I'm just interested in this interaction. How you're connected to Rumi will make your beliefs according to it will be very dependent on that factor. How you're connected to Rumi. So that I actually explored a lot after learning Indology and actually when I was learning Indology. And this helped me in philosophy also. Because philosophy ने वो बहुत polish कर दिया मैं. Like
Okay.
have no your thought of your have like absolutely zero thought of your own. And you're able to entertain some thought without accepting it. That's a very good thing for me that I learned in philosophy actually. That you don't have to accept what Plato is saying. You don't have to accept what Socrates is saying, but you have to at least entertain and investigate that why you're saying this, how you're saying this, how do you think this will work? And again, it reflects in my performance, it reflects in my teaching portion, it reflects in my performing arts whenever the next production after that and whatever I'm going to create, it is going to reflect in that. So basically, I think it's all of the studies or whatever I've learned so far, it has just helped me enable or open more and more compartments of my brain and
Yeah.
know myself even more, in a very better way. Actually. Yeah.
Yes, indeed. So, which other languages do you plan to learn?
So I am planning to learn French actually. Yeah.
Okay,
So I'm very much interested in French, and I also
nice.
want to learn Arabic. But
Uh-huh.
yeah, same problem is that I think that there are not good people when it comes to Arabic actually. Because since like it's exactly like Sanskrit. Sanskrit is very attached to religion, na? They are almost
Hmm.
one. So it's very difficult to find someone who will teach you Sanskrit without the religious part. I mean,
Hmm.
of course, there will be some religious part, religious
Yeah.
texts and scriptures will be there, but without
Hmm.
religion,
Hmm.
with religious text, I get it. Same thing is with Arabic, I think. Arabic also is very related because I want to learn Arabic because I want to read Quran, the original Quran. Same thing, I want
Hmm.
to learn Bengali because
Hmm.
literature and of course Tagore and
Yeah.
everything for that.
Tagore.
I'm also right now I'm learning Punjabi actually, and both the
Okay.
script, the Gurumukhi script, and
Okay.
the language also
Hmm.
because the it's a quote by Nusrat Fateh Ali Khan Sahab actually that
Hmm.
Persian and Punjabi two are
Hmm.
the best. These are the best languages to explain any Sufi thought. So
Hmm.
yeah, I want to learn Punjabi also. So I'm actually working towards it actually. Yeah.
Working towards it. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Then we can plan one interview after that once you
Sure
learn
thing.
all the
Sure thing.
languages.
Sure thing.
And you
Yeah.
have many such shows in the respective languages, like Rumi
Yeah.
Hai.
Yeah. Yeah.
You may have
Sure thing.
something
Sure thing. Definitely. So now that you have
there.
pointed it out, since last three
Uh-huh.
months, I am learning basic Sindhi. I have a friend in Delhi. She's teaching me
Okay.
Sindhi actually. She's from
Okay.
a Sindhi family. And there is this guy called Shah Abdul Latif Bhitai. Shah
Mm-hmm.
Abdul Latif Bhitai. He was a Sindhi poet actually.
Mm-hmm.
His mother is in, of course, Pakistan. And he wrote this text called Shahjo Risalo. Shahjo Risalo and Shah Ka Risal. Yani Shah Ka message. Shah yani Shah Abdul Latif Bhitai. He's named it
No.
after him.
Right.
He's saying written that message of Shah, and usme he has these seven stories, seven tragedies. So
Mm-hmm.
like the stories that we know, I don't know if you're familiar with Sasi Pannu. These are very Punjabi and Sindhi stories. Sasi Pannu is
Okay.
there, Soni Mahiwal is there, Heer Ranjha is
Mm-hmm.
there, and this one, apna, forgot this one, Momal Rano. Momal
Mm-hmm.
Rano. These are Rajasthani and Kutchi. ये region में these are very famous folk tales actually. So what he's
Okay.
done is he's compiled these seven stories
Mm-hmm.
and his protagonists are women actually.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So he calls them seven queens of Sindh. And that's how he's written it. And so my next plan is to learn Sindhi again. I was the text. I came across the text first actually. I didn't know anything about Sindhi language. Then I thought, कि नहीं, अभी अगर ये करना है, तो I have to
How-
learn Sindhi. I'm going to Sindhi now. So
yes.
it's a very powerful and it's all about love actually. The seven stories are actually it's like Leila Majnu, this one Romeo and Juliet, a tragic love story. Very
Mm-hmm.
powerful, very much connected, very profoundly philosophical, and they have this sophistic thought in them, if I may say, that we have come from something else, like we are part of that supreme, and we have
So,
to go one day like
mhm.
that. So
Mhm.
yeah,
Great.
thank you.
Wow. And yes, it was a wonderful conversation with you, Ashwin.
Likewise, yeah.
Yes. And just a question about these translations of Rumi's poetry. Where do we get to read? Should we follow your Instagram page or
Yeah.
how to?
So I'm on Instagram, Rumi Hai. Rumi
Okay.
Hai. That's RUMIHAI. Rumi
Okay.
Hai.
Mm-hmm.
And I post my ghazals and my shares and my translation on that basically.
Okay.
And many people ask me, have you published something, a book
Yes.
or like that. So I am kind of working on a coffee table book with
Mhm.
Urdu translations of Rumi and also Persian, of course. So yeah,
Okay.
and so whenever it will be released, it will be published, you'll get to know about it. Yeah,
Sure. So we will be following Instagram, so we get to know
sure
all the
thing,
updates.
sure thing,
Yeah,
sure thing.
sure,
Yeah,
sure. Great. So all the best for all your
thanks a lot.
plans, and
Yes,
let us soon see a book and new shows
sure
coming
thing,
up. Yes, in
sure thing,
Sindhi,
sure thing. Thank,
Punjabi, and French
yeah, yeah,
also.
sure. Great, great.
And
Thank
thanks
you,
for
thanks a lot.
joining, Ashwin. Thanks for
Thanks a
joining.
lot, and thanks to you because I felt like I was talking to a friend. Since again
Oh,
we are
oh,
regionally very separated, but there are very
yes.
few people who actually understand what this is all about. It's not about Rumi, it's not about poetry, it's not about just the
No,
language.
no.
It's about when they come together, they do something very wonderful. They do something magical, and that's what I want to convey to people through Rumi here. So I actually feel talking to you. I feel like I know you from बहुत दिनों से I know you. So that's the
Cosmic
there is also
connection.
yeah,
Yes,
obviously. And again, you're familiar with the languages, so
from the yes.
actually, yeah. So that is great talking to you. Yeah. Thanks a lot. Thanks.
Great, lovely. And you have a great day and all the best.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yes.
Thanks a lot.
Bye, Ashwin.
Bye bye. See you.
Bye bye.
झनक झनक झन झंकारितः
अखिल जगति भुलवी आहा हा
रसिक मनांच्या तारा गीत कहाण्या हित गुजे ही
सांगे अभिनव धारा
ही प्रसारण इंटरनेट रेडिओ ही प्रसारण इंटरनेट रेडिओ